ladies, so you know what time it is. We're going to make a Seattle Seahawks corset. So you're going to need a couple materials here. So you're going to need, of course, your fabric. You're going to need your corset here. You're going to need your trims. Seattle Seahawks patches, of course. Sew-on jewels. You're going to need trim. We have ribbon trim. We have this cute sequin trim. This beaded trim here. These golden roses trim. And then also other fancy trims or cute knickknacks you guys might want to add to your Seattle Seahawks corsets. Alright ladies, so let's get cracking. Alright ladies, so first thing what we're going to do here, we're going to place the corset on top of the fabric. I don't know if you guys can see that. Okay. So I like to place the fabric on, or the fabric underneath the corset. Now we're going to start cutting the corset underneath.
You know what else sucks? Somebody trying to relax you by talking about a murder. So, what would be a good spot for you to visualize? Me punching quarter in the...
When you guys choose which area of the corset where you want your Seahawks patch, you're going to take your iron and then you will just iron over your patch just to secure it onto your corset, alright? But for me, I made my own Seattle Seahawks patch with a fleece sheet and with needle and thread. And I feel that this patch is a little too plain. It doesn't quite match this kind of flashy material here. So I added sequins. I'm going to do the same thing. But for those of you ladies who prefer to buy your own Seahawks patch, go ahead and just choose where you want your patch. And then turn on your iron and just iron over your patch. Alright ladies, so I'm just going to finish sewing my Seattle Seahawks patch that I made by hand onto the corset, and then I'm going to add the sequins, and then we'll be back to apply the trim. Alright, we'll see you in a bit. Alright ladies, so after you guys applied your Seattle Seahawks patch onto your corset, whether you guys sewed it on, whether you guys ironed it on, the next step is we're going to take some trim and we're going to decide where to put it and then where to sew it. So ladies, when you get your trim, feel free to play around with the trim and just kind of decide where you guys want it, whether you guys want it on the side, whether you guys want it in the side, or whether you guys want it across. I'm going to put my sequin trim right underneath my Seahawks patch. And ladies, if you guys don't have a mannequin, you guys could just lay your Seahawks corset on the bed or on a table and just place the trim wherever you guys see fit. Hey ladies, so after you take your trim, you're going to place your trim exactly where you want it on your corset. Pin it on there so you guys can get an idea of what your corset will look like before you guys start sewing and stitching. Alright, so I pretty much decided on where I want to put all my trim, all my knick-knack jewels. Actually, not all of them. I only have most of them on there, and then I will start experimenting. But yeah, go ahead and pin all your trim onto your corset. Alright, pin it. Be careful with the pins so you guys don't poke yourselves. And then you could start sewing and stitching. Alright ladies, so I will see you in a bit. I'm going to sew these on by hand, and then I'm going to get more trim. See ya! Alright ladies, so after you have successfully pinned all your trim, your ruffles, all your other trim that you chose for your corset, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew and stitch. So I'm going to sew and stitch the ruffles here on the top first. And as I do so, I'm going to remove the pins. Ladies, if you have a sewing machine, go ahead and start sewing, all right? But for me, I don't have a sewing machine, so I'm just going to sew and stitch by hand. And then I'm going to remove the pins. All right, ladies, so let's get cracking.
try to be careful trying to focus also with the pins. Okay, ladies, so as you can see, I sewed and stitched the trim onto the corset, and I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. And make sure that your pins stay secure to the fabric onto the corset, so it will be very easy when you sew stitch. Okay, time to start the other side.
So the next thing we're going to do after we have successfully sewed on the ruffles onto the top of the corsets, we're going to start sewing and stitching the other trim that's on the corset here. I don't know if you guys could see it, but it's connected to the corset with these pins here. So we're going to do the same thing we did on the top. All right, we're just going to sew and stitch. Oh, and in case if you girls are wondering of why my Seahawk outfit looks a little different, I really didn't like the silver sequins, so I added white sequins just so it could match the corset a lot better. Okay, now be careful as you sew and stitch. Make sure you don't poke yourselves with these pins. Okay, ladies, so let's get started. All right, ladies, so now we're going to start sewing and stitching the trim over here right underneath the Seahawk patch. All right, ladies, so we just finished sewing and stitching on one side. All right, so you're just going to repeat the process here. Your trim is connected to your corset, so now you're just going to sew and stitch all around the corners here, and you're going to do the same thing with the trim that's right underneath your Seahawks patch. I'm not going to make a repeat. I'm not going to make another video of me doing the same thing, but you ladies definitely get the picture here. So ladies, just repeat sewing and stitching as you did on this side. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. All right. After that, then we'll begin to add sequins, and we're going to enjoy some more decoration. Okay, see you in a bit. All right, ladies, so now we're going to start sewing and stitching the trim over here right underneath the Seahawk patch. All right, ladies. So we just finished sewing and stitching on one side. All right, so you're just going to repeat the process here. Your trim is connected to your corset, so now you're just going to sew and stitch all around the corners here, and you're going to do the same thing with the trim that's right underneath your Seahawks patch. I'm not going to make a repeat. I'm not going to make another video of me doing the same thing, but you ladies definitely get the picture here. So ladies, just repeat sewing and stitching as you did on this side. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. All right. After that, then we'll begin to add sequins, and we're going to enjoy some more decoration. Okay, see you in a bit. Okay, ladies, so we finished sewing on the trim onto the corset here. As you guys can see, we sewed and stitched it on by hand. So the next step is we're going to put on some jewels, and then we're going to sew and stitch. All right, we're just going to add a little extra flair, and we're just going to add just a little extra flavor. All right, because I like my corsets to sparkle and I like it to shine, and I love adding a whole bunch of color onto the corset. So when doing photos, you get lots of vibrant and pretty colors onto the corset top. All right, you guys, so I'm going to film this in another angle so you guys can see what I'm doing. All right, ladies, so here comes the fun part, all right? Getting the jewels, deciding where you guys want to put them on your corset, and then sewing and stitching them on, all right? So let's see here. All right, you're going to take your jewels. You're going to decide where you guys want to put them, all right? I'll put one here. And just so you guys know, you can't sew and stitch, or you can't sew the jewels on with a sewing machine because the needle on the sewing machine cannot penetrate through these. So ladies, if you have any jewels, make sure you get something with a loop here on the side. I don't know if you guys can see that. All right. So you could just sew and stitch underneath. All right. So you're going to put this on top of your corset. All right. And then you're going to sew and stitch. All right, ladies, so I still want more color on my corset, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue sewing on more jewels. If your jewels doesn't have any holes on the sides, ladies, you could just take a glue gun, take your glue sticks, all right, and just start gluing and your jewels onto your corset top. I got sew-in jewels because even if you use the rhinestone glue, they tend to fall off, so I lightly sewed and stitched my jewels onto my corset, but I'm going to sew and stitch and add more thread onto the jewels in front of the camera so you guys can see what I'm doing. And also because I want my jewels to be secured onto my corset. Okay, ladies, before I did the sewing here, the sewing and the stitching, I don't know if you guys can notice here, but I'm using jewels where they have holes on each side. So I could easily sew and stitch the jewels onto the corset top here. All right, but if you guys have jewels where they don't have any holes whatsoever, we're going to use a glue gun and glue sticks. But first, I'm just going to continue sewing and stitching with the sew-on jewels. All right, so let's get to the next step, ladies. So the next step is making the green polyester ribbon roses that we're going to add to the corsets. Now, ladies, this is going to be a long process. So if you guys don't have that kind of time, feel free to stop by the dollar store and then you could buy your bouquet of roses. You could pick off the rose from the bouquet like this, and then you could just pin it onto your corset and you could sew it on. But for those of you who want to make your own polyester ribbon roses to add to your Seattle Seahawks corset, I'm going to show you how to do this step by step. All right, so first thing you'll need to do is you will need to buy a polyester ribbon rose roll here. You're going to need a candle and, of course, a pair of scissors. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this strip, this ribbon. You can measure it if you want. You can measure it with a measuring tape with 2 or 3 inches. Me, I just go by what I see here, but you're going to cut into 13 individual strips. Your next step, ladies, is you are going to take your candle and you're going to melt the seams on each side of the strip. After you have cut all of your 13 individual strips, the next step is to make each individual petal. So you're going to take this strip, ladies, here. You're going to fold the end of the strip into a triangle. Then you're going to fold it back behind like this. You'll take your needle and thread, and then you will sew and stitch. So it will look like this. Then you're going to take the bottom part, flip it up. You're going to bend this behind like this. So it'll look like this. And you're going to sew and stitch. Make sure your string looks like this right here. And then you're just going to give it a little tug. Oops. All right. I forgot I should have tugged it more to make the petal curve. Oh, well, I'll do that with the next one. Oops. All right, you're going to cut the string. Now you're going to tie the bottom in a knot here. So you're going to take the bottom corner, fold it up, fold it behind like this, and you're going to sew and stitch. Have the needle from underneath, poke it up. All right, then poke it down, poke it up. Whoops. Sew and stitch. Damn it. Okay, fold the bottom corner up. Fold this behind. Sew and stitch. And then to give the petal a curve, just give it a slight pull. So your petal will look like this. All right, and then now we're just going to repeat the process and make all of the individual 13 petals. All right, our next step here is we're going to tie a knot onto the end of the petal, and then we're going to cut the string so that way we can secure the thread onto each individual petal. So we're going to tie a knot, and then we're going to cut. And then we're just going to repeat the process with all the other 12 petals. And after we finish this process, then we are going to begin sewing the petals onto each other to make one individual rose. Now on to the next step, ladies. After you have successfully cut the strips, melted each strip, all right, you sewed and stitched and made every individual petal. You tied a knot onto the ends of the petal and you cut the string. The next step is to take each individual petal and you're going to make a rose. All right, so the first thing you're going to do, make sure the polyester ribbon shine is facing you. Then you're going to roll. Keep rolling. So it'll look like this. All right, take your needle and thread and you're going to stitch. So you can keep the petal together, all right? Now you're going to take the other petal. And I like to work on the rose on each side, and I divide it up into 4 sections, all right? So we're going to put one petal on one side of the inside of the rose here. You're going to take your needle and thread and you're going to sew it together. Poke the needle through the middle as well so you can hold it together, and you're going to tug and pull. So it will look like this. Then you're going to take the other petal and then put it on the other side. So you're going to put one petal on the other side like this. I'm going to put the rose upside down, and you're going to sew, you're going to penetrate the needle through. And make sure that the needle penetrates through the other petals as well, so the petal will stay in place like this. All right, now I'm going to put a petal on this side and this side. So we'll put one petal on the top like this. I'm going to flip it upside down, and we're going to sew, penetrate the needle through the side, penetrate it through the middle, and make sure you get the other side of the petal there so it will stay in place. All right, so now we're going to put a petal on the other side, on the fourth side. I'm going to flip it upside down. Then I'm going to sew and stitch. Sew and stitch on one side of the petal. Going to sew and stitch through the middle. Then I'm going to sew and stitch onto the other side. So I already got 4 sides of the rose here. I put a petal, one on each side of the inside of the rose. Then I put a petal on the other sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so now we're just going to repeat the process. All right, ladies, so after you make your individual roses, which sadly takes a long time to make, especially if you're going to sew, if you're going to cut, burn / sew, stitch, and sew each individual rose. I have at least 25 roses, and sadly I still don't have enough for my corset, but I'm going to continue and repeat the process until I have enough roses that will fit onto my corset, because I have a specific design I envision in my mind of how I want it. But I think I have to make probably 10 or 15 more of these. And again, ladies, this is a long process to make each of these individual roses. I didn't time myself, but I think it could take anywhere from 30 minutes or an hour to make each of these. But for me, it's definitely going to be worth it, especially when I'm going to have the outcome I have in mind. Ladies, if you guys don't have that kind of time, again, just stop by the dollar store. You could buy bouquets of roses. You could pull the roses off the bouquets, and you could just either glue it onto your corset. But if you want it to last, sew the fake roses onto the corset. All right. All right, so I'm going to try to finish, and I'm going to complete making all the individual roses I need for my corset. And after I finish that, then we are going to pin the roses onto the corset and sew it on to complete the next process, or the next step. All right, so let's get to the next step. So after you have successfully sewed on your sewed on jewels onto the top here, and after you have glued on the other jewels and your other fancy knickknacks onto the corset, we also did the next step of making each individual green polyester ribbon roses here. And the next step here, ladies, is what we're going to do is we are going to pin each of the individual roses onto the top, and then we're going to sew and stitch. Alright, y'all, so as you have seen, I have sewed and stitched each of the individual roses to each other, and then I sewed and stitched the roses onto the top part of the corset and kind of around it. I'm going to take a little break because god damn, like my knees hurt from kneeling that long. So I'm going to take a little break, and then we're just going to do the same thing on the other side. So I will catch you guys in a bit. All right, y'all. So time to do the other side. So we're not quite done just yet. We only sewed and stitched the roses onto the corset. We only did this so we could just sew them in place. All right. So next, we're just going to sew all the sides of the roses that we didn't get so we could secure the roses onto this top here. Hey ladies. All right, girls. So we finally did it. All right, we finally made our Seattle Seahawks corset. What we did was we took a plain corset, we put the fabric underneath, we cut the fabric, and we pinned the fabric onto the corset. All right, then we applied our Seattle Seahawks patches, applied all the trims. We sewed and glued all the fancy knickknacks onto the bottom part of the corset. We also went through the process of making each of the individual roses here. Some of you guys, if you took a shortcut, hey, no judgment, okay? It takes a long time to make each one of these roses. All right, and then we pinned the roses onto the corset. We sewed and stitched it. All right, and then we added fabric on the inside. It was a long process. It was a long journey, but we got it done. So I'm going to walk close to the camera so you guys can kind of see the little detail here. So as you guys can see, we got each of the individual roses on there along with the Seattle Seahawks patch. All right, I made my own Seattle Seahawks patch not trim. I made my own patches because I had a particular design in mind here. All right, and as you guys can see, we also got the fancy jewels on there. Okay, oops. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to flash you guys there. But okay, so, and ladies, I do apologize about the bad lighting and the bad angles here. I'm working with very limited space, so I put the camera in the angles to where you guys could see it, or where it's more visible, but I'm pretty sure I'll get more practice, okay? Oh, and ladies, stay tuned because I'm going to make a matching Seattle Seahawk headdress along with a matching skirt. All right, and so I will show you how to make it step by step. I hope you guys were able to see everything and see what I was doing. And I'm really sorry, I'm terrible at explaining things on how to do something. I'm better just with showing people how to do something. All right, so I'm sorry I'm not a powerful communicator, or I'm not very articulate, or I'm not articulate at all. So, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoy your creations there. Oh, and ladies, stay tuned because after I finish the Seattle Seahawks project, my next thing is I want to show you girls on how to make a carnival costume. All right. If any of you have partied for Carnival, whether you guys party in Rio de Janeiro or Miami or Texas, all right, or wherever they celebrate it, I will show you how to make it. Okay, ladies, so thank you for watching and have a good night. Take care. Bye.